What's up, everybody? Welcome back to NAPP, Not Another Podcast. It's you got Cody with Dink and Donuts, and
Dawson with D-Dog Pickleball.
so before we get into today's episode with paddles and gear and grit, today's episode is brought to you by Holy Performance. This is a drink mix built specifically for pickleball players, padel players, and tennis. So if you're rolling up to league night with random gas station drinks, you're leaving performance on the table. Holy gives you pre-game energy, in-game hydration, and post-game recovery, all designed what you actually need on the courts. The in-game hydrate is loaded with electrolytes and nootropics to keep your legs fresh and your brain locked in deep into that third game. It's zero sugar, so you don't get that crash mid-match. So if you want to stop fading during those long rallies, actually feel better after you play, check out Holy Performance and level up your court time. I'll drop a link below so you can try it out for yourself. Use code Dink and Donuts to save you a little bit of money. And then our second sponsor is
Flick Weight. I have the weighted 3-gram bands with us from Flick Weight. These are actually my personal go-to grip band of choice for the weighted bands. They look just like this. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but their number is also on the inside of them. And pretty much you just toss it onto a paddle like that, and it does the job that kind of like a weighted butt cap or a weighted cap coin would do. And they're effective. They're simple. They also make a variety of paddle accessories like tungsten tape, cap coins, weighted butt caps. I believe they were trying something with kind of weight on the edge guards as well that isn't tungsten tape as well, kind of for the future too. So that'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Flick Weight, they've been a long time supporter of the pod. Definitely check them out and let's rock and roll.
sweet. Let's jump into paddles. You start this first one.
All right. So first and foremost, we got the RPM Q2. We got sent the 14 millimeter version. This is the only shape we got, unfortunately, for better or for worse. And yeah, so I'll start here. I have now hit this probably at least over 4 hours on it. I'm trying to think. It's probably 3 to 4 sessions now, usually 2 hours a session. Obviously, not all that time is on the one paddle, but I put a good amount of time on this, especially today as well, before this, just to get some additional thoughts. As you can see, my contact is nice and all over the place on this one for a change. Cody normally likes to comment how it's all right there, and it is not.
That is not the sweet spot.
No, it is not. And that will go right into this battle for me. So if you want the hardest hitting and poppiest paddle you can get, this very well might be it, to be honest. I think this thing probably maxes out the power and the pop stat in a paddle. I will be honest, mine is stock. I'm going to add weight at some point, but the reason I haven't yet is because I'm genuinely worried if I add weight, it's going to get too hard to control because it's already hard enough to control as is. I do know that with some paddles, adding weight does actually help with control. But for me, I actually think this would be a great Flick Weight weighted band candidate or cap coin candidate, just because I think that's a great way to add weight and gain some control without, really heavying up and overly powering the paddle unintentionally, per se, if you're someone that kind of needs that. But yeah, I like it. It's the same shape as the Friction Pro right here that I have for comparison. It's that elongated shape. It's kind of like the Yola Perseus shape, but instead of being short, they kind of maximize the dimensions. So you get your 17.5 by, I think, 7.5, something like that. 16.5 by 7.5. Jeez.
Yeah, there we go. That makes better.
I was about to say, I saw a face I haven't seen yet, but
I was like, wait a second. Math isn't mathing.
As you can see, the aesthetics are pretty similar. I actually think the Q2 aesthetics are a little better. I like the purple and black accent more than this, but it just doesn't pop out as much as this, in my opinion.
I wonder why. I mean, you're wearing a purple shirt.
All right. Easy there. But yes, they got the purple line on the edge guard for me as well, which I do appreciate, as purple being my company's color. So, but yeah, to me, this is the definition of a power paddle. If you were talking high power, that's what this is. Forgiveness is pretty low, I would say. I think that you can control it, but you really, really have to focus on controlling it and nothing else. The second you lay into the ball a bunch is when the ball is going to sail, in my opinion, with this thing. And I think that, That's kind of my early thoughts on it. I still need to do some tests with weight. I want to get some radar gun tests on it as well. So I'll leave it at that. Go for it.
I would absolutely agree. Coming from somebody that mained the RPM V1 until we got this, I was ecstatic. Like I was like, new main, hands down. I mained the boomstick elongated. Like I had no doubt in my mind that I was gonna main this paddle until I got it and I played one game with it and I was like, holy crap, like what is this paddle? My drives were sailing through the court. I was popping up dinks like I normally don't do and it just completely caught me off guard. It is a 14 millimeter, so I think comparison to like the boomstick, which I think is the most comparable paddle on the market for the Q2, the boomstick comes in at 16 instead of the 14. So I think that's where I'm getting a little bit more of like that like quick response pop that I'm not used to with the boomstick, where boomstick's a little bit more dwell power, not so much like that quick pop. I mean, it is poppy, but this 14 millimeter Q2 is just a different level. So you and I've chat before, and yeah, I think I need to do a little bit of either a weighted butt cap, the weighted band, a little bit of weight down near the throat, just to see if I can even make the paddle a little bit heavier because it's not a very heavy paddle. It's very light for an elongated. So I think maybe bringing a little bit more weight to the center mass down by the handle might help that out a little bit. I'm still not against it, but you and I've been talking with our contact with RPM. I'm hoping that I can maybe get them to send me the 16 in the Q2 because I think that I have a feeling I personally would like the 16 a little bit more. I think it would lessen the immediate pop profile on 14 millimeter and give me a little bit more of that less pop but more baseline drive power that I'm used to and how it fits my playstyle. So, but there's still some tinkering, but it definitely scared me. Like I was gonna take somebody's head off with this paddle. Like I was just blasting people, and I might as well just went for body bags the whole time I was playing with it because my normal play style I couldn't keep in the court, and then if I tried to just like you were saying, like actually focusly try to control this paddle, it just I didn't feel like I could play my game as freely. Like I was more conscious of trying to control the paddle instead of just playing the game. So I think it's a great paddle. It wasn't as easy as a transition as I thought it was going to be coming from the V1 to the Q2. I also would like to try the V2 because talking with our contact sounds like it might be a little bit less of the pop profile than the Q2. So, a couple of things I want to try. Still working on those contacts, but definitely a if you're just going to grip and rip it, I mean, there's no better paddle with top end power than the Q2 right now. So to be determined on this paddle for me. It's not a bad paddle. I can't control it right now.
Yeah, I actually think that's really well put. And to talk about that V2, I think if I were to put a paddle between the two of these, my guess here, I have not hit a V2 yet, is that the V2 would be smack in between the two of these. Because I do also think that this is still a power paddle, but I don't think this is the level of power that this is.
No.
I think if anything, this is on the lower end of the power spectrum, maybe towards the middle if you really weighted it up, just due to the shape and the millimeter being 14. I will say that this is still one of my like most favorite 14 millimeter feeling paddles I've hit to date. You know, I will admit there were some signs of age when I did comparison testing today on my original V1 version. I was noticing some dead spots and stuff like that. So it might have hit enough hits that it does need to be added some weight, adjusted
Hmm.
a little, stuff like that finally. But for the longest time, I'd play this thing stock when I'd hit with it, and I absolutely loved it. So
Yeah.
it also goes to show that the RPMs a lot of the time do come ready out of the box, which I know it's not a trait everyone loves since a lot of people like to add weight, and I'm a big proponent of adding weight more than not, but sometimes the simplicity of just opening it up and playing with it is nice too. So I wanted to highlight that as well. And I actually really like what they got going on over there at RPM so far. I think they're doing big things. I will admit though, I'd love to see some wide body 16s or just any kind of 16 millimeter. Please. Listen, I am not the 14 millimeter guy. And I know a lot of companies are pushing 14 right now. It's like the hot new thing, even though it's not really new. It's just kind of the hot thing right now. But Yeah, I'll leave that at that. All right, we are moving on now to gearbox, right?
Gearbox. I got the elongated with me right now.
I got
You
both.
got you got
Okay,
both.
I got you. I am
Sweet.
ready to rumble. So we got the same shapes from the GX2 Power. I was going to say GX2 as well, but we got a hyper with the GX2 that then suddenly disappeared come the GX2 Power, which disappoints me because the hyper is actually my go-to off-court wall training paddle when I'm not paddle testing. So because it's a little bit smaller than 16, so it teaches you closer contact, and it's also teaching you to like catch. It's almost like a trainer paddle without it being a trainer paddle, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it works like a trainer paddle in that way without, having to deal with the, whatever, little mini trainer paddle. So I actually really liked it because of that. And it's a good paddle too. The hybrid is very unique, is how I'll put it shape wise. This handle is pretty crazy. Like, this is a long handle and it's got room. It could probably go like up to here, I'd say. You could probably get it up there. And then the elongated is the same shape as the GX2 and the GX2 elongated. You get your, we'll call it medium handle. I think it's 5'4" on the dot. For me personally, between the two of these, the elongated is my pick, which is not normally my thing. I'm actually a very big hybrid wide body guy normally. I just thought it played better. I thought it played more true. I really like the feeling of these. Like, this is probably one of the better Gen 3 feelings on the market right now. I did have to add weight to all of them eventually, but I actually thought the elongated it could have kept stock and played fine. I ended up going with 1 gram tungsten tape, bottom corners going into the face a bit here with this one. I did the same thing with the hybrid. It's just the corners on it flare out more, so it looks a little different. And one of them is a touch uneven, I'm seeing now. So I'll probably fix that out. But yeah. So I think they're good. To me, they're low power. I think that, I don't know if they're going to break in further or not. Like, I can't speak to the durability of them yet. I'd have to hit with them for more months than I have so far. But, I've got about probably 4 weeks on them now, I think 3-4 weeks. And they're definitely going to be something that I'm going to be reviewing in depth soon. I'm looking forward to that review. I know some other reviewers have already reviewed them. I've talked with some briefly. And look, I think it's definitely different than anything else Gearbox has in their lineups. The one thing I will say, I do know it's a Gen 3 paddle, but Gearbox, their big thing is paddle durability and longevity. So I think that that's very promising for this. I don't want to say a price because I don't want to get it wrong, but I do remember it being under the $200 mark. So I think that that's also promising too, that we're going kind of downward in that category for Gearbox, who's historically been on the higher side of the price end. So look, I think for what it is, it's a good paddle and it's a good fit. You got thoughts, Cody, on these?
Yeah, I do. So I can't speak personally to durability, but I've seen some videos, talked to some other reviewers that are already having like extreme like mod TA 15 type of core crushing after like 8 hours of play. And to the point, like not just like little, like where you can just like hear it starting to like crinkle. Like it was like crunchy, like already like mod TA type of crunchy. And I know that Gearbox tried to do something different. Usually they did, instead of like a hot press, they went with a cold press this time for the thermoformed type of thing. So I don't know if that has something to do with it. I'm not that much of a paddle nerd and where dive into that type of stuff, but I don't know if the cold press has something to do with durability. I know a big thing for Gearbox is that this was supposed to be a durable Gen 3 kind of fix that core crushing thing. So maybe these other reviewers had some duds, or maybe they just maybe have some more time on it than I do, or who knows. But both mine, I've been checking routinely in game and post game all over the face to see if I am getting any type of crinkle, and I don't have anything. I do have the wide body. That's the one I grabbed, or sorry, the elongated. My bad. However, I've actually preferred the hybrid in this. I really liked these paddles the first day I brought them out and tried them. And then the second time I brought them out, it was like I couldn't do anything. The ball was just flying off the face of the paddle and was just like, I don't know if it was just a me day, if it was a me and a paddle day. I don't know if it was just one of those days, but I had a hard time controlling it as far as it popping up on me. Given normally I play with the Selkirk ball, and the day that this was happening, I was playing with the Lifetime ball. And I know that usually from my experience, I feel like I get more pop, power, and like bounce with Lifetime than I do with the Selkirk. So there could have been a little bit of a correlation to that. But I'm not checked out on Gearbox yet. I personally feel like the GX2 power is better than the GBX, in my own opinion. I think I've become more comfortable with foam style paddles than the polypropylene style paddles, but that's just my preference. If you are big polypropylene, you like that feel, that response, and that feeling coming off the paddle, then this is for the money and the power and the pop and the profile you get with it. Gearbox is hit the nail on the head with this one. The only concern I have is seeing and hearing those core crushing issues, and whether or not that's going to be a routine issue or if it's just kind of a one off thing right now. But with that, Gearbox is offering a 6-month warranty on the paddles upon registering your paddle once you get it. There's a little QR code on the packaging that you get, and you can register your paddle and get that 6-month warranty. So they are offering that, which is good, especially if they are going to be prone to that core crush. Hopefully not, but it's something to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I was not aware of the other reviewers with the core crushing piece, so that's actually fresh hot off the press news to me. Personally, with mine, I haven't had any crunch, and I think I got mine a couple days before you, so I don't think I have too much more time, but I've put in a good amount, So I'd say that to that. I'm with you though on durability. I think with anything Gen 3, the cat's out the box. It's not the most durable construction. Like, we know that. We understand that. I'm with you in that. I think just with the amount of full foam that you and I have hit, we've adjusted and we like that feeling a little more. I will admit though, like some of those Gen 3s, when you crunch into that hollow in like a good way, and you get that kind of hollow stiff or hollow dense feeling, in my opinion, that can be really nice. Like that V1 RPM 14 feeling, I liked that. That was nice out of the box. Now, as it's starting to break in, I don't know how much I like it now, but out of the box, it was really nice. I haven't noticed much of a gearbox break in for my GBX powers yet. I will say this, I do feel like the hybrid out of the two is probably going to be the one that would break in more than the elongated, just because there's a little less paddle there. And you have a little more paddle with the elongated. That's typically how it works with a lot of those things. So, in terms of core and then contact placement and stuff like that. Look, I think for what they are, like you said, to me, this is the perfect paddle for the person that doesn't want to leave Gen 3. Like, that's what it is. Like, you don't want to leave Gen 3 and you can live with warrantying and customer service emails, potential calls, stuff like that. This is a great paddle for you. And I do know there are people out there like that. So this is probably my new Gen 3 recommendation for now. We'll see where what you talked about goes from there, because I will admit that's usually the first signs of then. It only usually gets worse after those signs, I find. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there. But yeah, all right. I believe you got a paddle for us that I do not have. So let's hear it.
Yeah. So we're going to jump into the Aereo Cyclone with the Beyond Measure cotton candy wrap. So I got this paddle a couple weeks ago, but it came kind of like in the giant group of paddles with the Q2, the GBXs, the Valairs. Like there was a lot that we had got. And so it kind of fell on the back burner. And plus, I was just trying to play catch up with carbon and other things. So I brought this paddle out on Friday. I went and played that morning. I was prepping for a tournament that happened yesterday, which we will not talk about because it was not good. But I had every intent in my mind of maining a certain paddle Friday morning from 5:30 to 7:30, or sorry, from 5 to 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. Took a break, went back at 9 to 11, and I was like, you know what? I need to get some time with the Aereo Cyclone. So I threw a wrap on it. I threw 2 grams of Pickleball Effect tungsten tape. So there's 2 grams there of 0.5 and on there. So at 3 and 9, it was like, holy crap. Like this paddle is awesome. The group I was with is like my normal group that I kind of just play with routinely just for fun rec games, and it's usually mixed doubles. However, this round they wanted to start like girls versus guys, and we went 5 games, and because the girls were just pissed off with me the whole entire time, because I was practically playing singles. I was serve, return, and then I was driving it, and I was just doing whatever I wanted to do with the ball. They couldn't stop it. I was like, this is crazy. Like, what is happening? Like, I was blown away. My serves were insane. I could place my serve wherever I wanted. It was just one of those anomalies where everything was going right, to the point we went one of the games, I went 11-0 off the first serve. Like, I didn't lose my serve. They immediately wanted to run it back, and I went another 5 serves before I lost my serve. So I went like 16 straight points before my partner ever had to serve. And I was like, holy cow. Okay. I am, as of right now, at 11 o'clock on Friday before my tournament on Saturday, I changed my main paddle. So I went from what I thought was going to be my main to the Aereo Cyclone, and unfortunately the tournament didn't go the way it went. I'm not going to blame it on the paddle. It was just not a day that I had like it was on Friday where I could do no wrong. But this paddle feels good. I don't know why I chose to go with the 3 and 9 weight setup, because that's not something I normally do, but I wanted to try something different, and it felt amazing. It's foam core, 16 millimeter paddle, elongated, so it fits exactly like the style profile paddle I like. I would say it's mid power. I wouldn't say it's up there with like the Q2 or the boomsticks, but I wouldn't say that it's low power. So it's in between low power and mid court power, and it feels fantastic. And I personally don't feel like I hear enough about the Aereo Cyclone, nor like before I got it or even now. And I think it's definitely a sleeper paddle that isn't getting talked about enough. Now, you and I were, texting back and forth when I was telling you that, and you're like, man, I think I hear a lot about it. And I don't see it. I was talking with, messaging back with Braden with PB Effect, and he was asking me about it, and was, after reading my story about it I posted on Instagram about it, he's like, hey, I'm gonna have to go check this out. And same thing for him. It came kind of at a, influx of paddle time. Definitely seeing my story, he was like, I need to go try it out and give it a whirl. So I think Aereo is doing something good, and I can't wait to see what they do moving forward with some new paddles. And hopefully we can get one in your hands here soon. I feel cool for once. I finally have a paddle before you do.
The funny thing to me, for context, is that I was the one that reached out to Aereo, and they sent Cody the paddle and not myself. That was the funny thing to me. It's not, when reviewers get stuff can be skewed time-wise. I don't, for the most part, I don't have an issue with that, but I just thought that was, like, hilarious to me, that it just somehow forgot its way here and made its way to you, like, pronto. So,
Well, and I got two.
look, it sounds like a really fun paddle. To my knowledge, right now, all they've got is a bunch of different elongated shapes. I took a look at their catalog a couple of days ago in prep for this call. I did see a couple of pre-orderable paddles that look like they're part of a new line by them, and it had 3 different shapes. And
Mm.
they're all $79.99 too, which I thought was really interesting, because we haven't seen paddle prices that low for a
A minute.
potentially performance paddle. I don't know what this specific paddle is going to be or is, but I think they're planning on making moves this year. And look, this paddle, you're not the first to speak about it. You're not going to be the last, by any means. It sounds like a really good paddle from the things I've heard and seen. I'm looking forward. You know how I roll. I like to hit it first before I give an opinion on it. Sometimes that opinion doesn't change at all off of other perceptions. Sometimes it changes drastically. I appreciate learning about it. I'm looking forward to whenever my unit gets here and go from there. All right. Let's talk 11/6/24 here. Because I
I
know Cody is missing the shape. I'm gonna hold all 3 up for him. So there you go. Wide body, yes, he's got my wonderful purple one. Hybrid and elongated. So, fun fact, I have spent more time on these 3 paddles than anything else I've reviewed for the past 2 months so far, because of the hex grit and the grit testing, which I'm going to talk into in the next segment. But I just want to quickly touch particularly on the Vapor and the Hirachi in terms of power level. So when I reviewed my Vapor, I had my weight up here because I had done my prior Vapor for the Alpha Pro Power and for my Vapor Power, and my Vapor Power pre-order blackout version. All had done weight down here and the twist weight was just too much. It was hard to play with the paddle. Like it wouldn't maneuver properly for flicks and stuff. And for doubles, that was a no-go for me. So I tried the middle. It was still too much. I went with top corners or a top bar, and then I would do a very, very small, like not even an inch almost of an offset here, and it would play wonderful. So I said, okay, I'll try weight just in the top corner, see how it does. It was meh. It was okay. I ended up doing and a half 0.5 of lead. That's why this is white tape over it, so you can't see it right now. In this bottom corner going into the face, and this is the best this paddle has played to date for me. It honestly, genuinely had me considering it. Yeah, there you go. Pretty much that. Pretty much that right there. That's what I have on my Pegasus right now too, which I will talk to in a bit, just because that is not a normal weight placement for me for a wide body. To me, yes, I know this is a hybrid paddle. You look at this as a second wide body, is kind of how I look at it. I look at it as this is a catalog with two wide bodies. You get the square one, or you get the more traditional one, and then you get the elongated. And the funny thing, though, is I actually think the Vapor hits a little harder than the Hirachi in certain scenarios. And I'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, dude, with the new weight setup on this thing plays awesome. Like, I'm actually very, very pleased with how it's been playing. Not pleased with this giant mark right here. I don't know how that got there today. But,
Yeah, you sent me a paddle with this giant mark.
oh, geez. That must have happened in the mail then, man. Because that
I
thing
was
was
like,
clean when I
I was
sent.
like, what the heck?
Yeah, that definitely happened in the mail right there then. These do scratch up though, just so you know. Here, I'll use my Pegasus because this is the one that I've been hit with the most. These scratch up just from from the ball a bunch. I honestly, this has looked worse pre-cleaning it. It's part of how the hex grit works. David talked about it in a video a little bit while back. It might have been the video he was cleaning them with Windex too, which interesting to me. I'm
I
not gonna
haven't
lie.
tried it yet.
I will just say that, it's a paddle reset spray or a spray or whatever chemical, non-chemical option you use. With that being said, I'm going to move into my Hirachi real quick now and then pass it over. Yeah, so I ended up doing like, basically, I call this if it's under 3 inches, it's a pretty small amount of weight to me in terms of the spread, just because I use very light weighting tape, just so you guys know. This is about an inch and a half of 1 gram bottom corners here. And then I have a nice little bar on the top. It's a little smaller than I normally do the bars, just because I was worried the big bar would be a bit too much for the elongated shape. But the elongated actually is the lightest of the three paddles I got, and the swing weight is surprisingly low, even with weight. So I found that interesting, and this is probably the best playing Hirachi yet, coming from someone that I think I've hit every iteration of it, to be honest. I think from the original, there was a Jelly Bean iteration, there was Alpha Pro Power, a Pro Power. I think there was something else in between there too. Prior to that, there was the YSF. For a lot of you 11624 OGs, the YSF was basically their first paddle, and it was pretty much a catalog paddle in terms of shape. It had that kind of like old school elongated shape. It was a great paddle though, to be honest. And at the time it was like $100. I was like, at the time, I think it was 2022, 2023 maybe. It was a great deal at the time. That's one thing I actually just checked their catalog today because I was recommending this to a buddy of mine. A lot of their prior older paddles have been going on sale because of the recent launch of these. So you can pick up like some Alpha Pro Powers right now for like $100.
Yeah.
Pretty good deal. Like that's a good Gen 3 paddle that you could pick up for like $100. But yeah, the Hirachi plays pretty close to the Vapor for me in terms of power. I think it's low tier power is how I would put all three of these with weight, and I think they definitely need weight. I think without weight, these two are still low power. To be honest, without weight, this is borderline all court. It's pretty soft without weight. With the weight, though, this thing hits hard and it's fast. And that is one of the many things I really like about it. So, yeah, and then I don't know what they're doing with their undergrip, but I ended up taking it off for the Pegasus. I left it for the Vapor, and then I'm going to take it off for the Hirachi because I can feel that, like, that, like, squish feeling here, kind of. That, like, swish, like, right here in the butt cap sometimes. Right on the sides. Not so much here just because the bevel here is a bit stronger. It's the side bevels. It's just got a little too much squish for me. I usually like them a little firm, but not, like, extremely stiff. And for me, just putting two overgrips will change that a lot of the time. I usually do that. But yeah, so that's kind of like a low-high, high-low, however you want to call it, on the Hirachi and the Vapor. I think that honestly, for $190 after code, all three of these paddles are an absolute steal for what you're getting.
Yeah.
There is no other long-term grit solution currently under $200 to my knowledge. I think the Spartus P1 is still just above it before the code or after the code. And I know the Selkirk ain't going anywhere near that price point. So,
Nope.
like, there you go. So,
real options.
And I have got to try blue grit yet with Honolulu.
thing is, it's intriguing to me. I think it's still
I think it's still above 200 plus.
still above though, and it did just get approved.
Mm-hmm.
Honolulu. Speaking of which, let's chat. Cody and I have been trying, so let's chat. I'll leave that at that. But yeah, so in terms of the long-term grit, I'm gonna do a grit section kind of after this, but I want to hear Cody's thoughts. I know you've been putting a lot of time, in particular, on the Hirachi, so go for it, man.
Yeah. So you sent it over. You sent it over along with the Pegasus. To be fair, I played like one game with the Pegasus, and that's been about it. I've let some people try it because 11.624 definitely has a lot of hype around their stuff. And I have a bunch of people that are interested in the Hirache, but I just can't let this like leave my hands for a period of time where it's not in my bag, because this is a paddle I kind of like fall back to. So it's not a paddle that I'm willing to like loan out for like a week or two at a time at this particular moment, because I've been like falling back to this paddle. So I threw an overgrip on it. I don't notice what you're saying about the squish. Like, it doesn't bother me.
So
Yeah, I threw an overgrip on it and it felt good. I know you played with it a little bit before you sent it my way, and the more I played with it, I felt like it was getting softer. So, this is 0.5 gram tungsten tape, and I don't know, there's 2 grams there, so whatever that equals out from
It's like
to equal to, yeah, so 4 inches.
4 to 5 inches.
So I put that down at, whatever you want to say, the bottom corners moving up to the face, and it felt better. I don't have a top bar on yet. I think that's my next move, is throwing a top bar on to see if I can get a little bit more like whip through the face, the top end of the paddle, like I like to hit. But I am loving this paddle. The grit is still very much there, and it's insane. Like, talk about like 80 grit sandpaper and just throw it on a paddle face, and that's what you got.
I love the grit on these things.
Oh yeah, it's insane, but I love it. I am definitely, it's not leaving my bag anytime soon, especially the Hirache. I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about the like lavender purple-ish color, but it's growing on me. I'm surprised you sent me the purple unit, since it's your.
I pondered it for a good minute, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be the purple unit. That's like, I was like, for better or for worse, because if pretend like the Vapor was teal, this would have been all three in the same color. I thought that would have made the most sense from like a photo video standpoint,
Yeah.
rather than having like a bunch of different colors in one paddle family.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it because of that, because I wanted it to look more professional. But I will admit, had they sent me 3 purple units, yeah, you would have been getting teal and white.
The one negative I will say, and I don't even know if it's a negative about the paddle. It's not a negative about the paddle, but I would say with the thing that I've been battling was with how my swing path is through the ball, and how much topspin I create with normal paddles that aren't durable grit or insane grit texture. I've been finding that my topspin drives in particular are dipping sooner and quicker than they are with other paddles. So I've been finding that this is jumping in, like dipping sooner at the top of the net rather than dipping after it's already passing the net. Like I said, it's not the paddle's fault or the grit's fault. It's definitely the player's fault, but it's just the swing path that I generate with just normal paddles. I've found that more often than not with a different paddle, that I was finding myself clipping the top of the tape, hitting and jumping in, bouncing into the court, or it's just smacking that white top of the tape and then dropping on my side more often than I do with other paddles. So it's just, more playtime, more reps, more just go out and practice and hit. But I really like this paddle. Like I said, I think 11624 is doing some great things moving forward. I mean, there's videos out there you can go check out, Braden or with PB Effect or John Q that have, done some durable grit testing. I think Chris and Isaac over at PB Studio have done some tests where like a fresh unit and several different iterations, and the grit is lasting outrageously longer than just normal raw carbon fiber does. So I think that 2026 we are going to see some more durable grit test, paddles and stuff coming out. It'll be interesting to see if Selkirk changes their Infinigrit, and then with Honolulu, like we were mentioning, with their blue grit and the Spartus permagrit, which I can't speak to the permagrit. This definitely outperforms Infinigrit in every way possible thus far. It's more grit. It's has more grit, and it's definitely lasting longer than the Infinigrit. So they're killing it, and so that's what I got so far on the Sriracha. Let's kind of mix this next segment up, and let's just go into your grit testing, and then we'll do this. We'll do the other one after that.
So, first off, that's high praise coming from over there, Selkirk boy, that this is better than Infinigrit. Wow. Infinigrit is like the big, main, more durable grit that I've not really gotten my hands on much yet, outside of hitting other people's Selkirks, since I don't have any Selkirk units of my own at the moment. But, as Cody mentioned, I did have his units of these beforehand, and I had my units, so his Pegasus and my Pegasus are actually the two that I based this test off of. I spent the most of my time, just because the wide body is my go-to shape of the three, on the Pegasus, first on his, and then on mine. I charted down every time I play a game, stuff like that, thoughts, comparisons. I was able to get a buddy of mine's radar gun and do the radar measurements like that originally. I want to get more time on this and then compare it to that now, just because this unit is about a month fresher than the units that Cody has in terms of time. But Cody's units weren't being hit that whole month. So Cody's units are still pretty fresh as well.
I don't know. They're
Especially
pretty dead.
one game on his Pegasus. So, I'm sure that Pegasus is still plenty fine. But yeah,
I don't
so
know. It felt pretty broken in when I got it.
we'll see. We'll see.
I'm just.
And then the other one too that is been in my possession the entire time is the Vapor. And that is the other one I'm going to base this off of, just because this was the first one that was approved of the three. For those of you, I know some people have talked about it already, but pretty much they rushed the approval for this one in particular because Dekel Bar, their newly signed pro, this is his paddle shape of choice by 11624, and he's got to have something to play with on the PPA tour. So they really, really pushed to get this one approved, and then they kind of took their time more with the other two units. So it's just a quick little lesson there as to why they didn't all release at the same time. Prior to that, 11624 has always released a full line at the same time, other than like the original Hirachi X YSF days when they were still like very, very new. But yeah, so that's kind of the basis of this grit testing. It's not the most scientific testing in terms of the science, like Cody was just talking about. I don't have like an air cannon I can fire balls at and, whatever other stuff. I do have a couple slow motion cameras, stuff like that. I can do that portion of it, but I can't do, a lot of these other tests with a bunch of different variables. I can create variables like I do with, the radar gun and me positioning myself in a specific position to hit a type of shot and see what the number shows. I do plan on doing that again, probably sometime before or by the summer, just because I think that'll give me a better example of use and long-term durability on these grits. But yeah, that's kind of where that stands currently at the time of this recording. Yeah. So I think that, look, again, I'm not going to speak comparing to other grits and all that, but if we compare to regular grit, I can go get my main from about a month ago now and hold it up to this thing, and that main is smooth as glass. And this thing is rough as sandpaper still. And I've hit with this, if not as just as long as not longer as that paddle. And that was a great paddle, but it's like, that's kind of where I think the grit piece is very underlooked a lot. And not all paddles generate their spin from the gritty feeling. I know that David made a very big emphasis on the gritty feeling of hex grit. because he talked about in some of his videos that he released on their kind of channels and stuff that what do people do to tell grit? They go like this. They do this. What do the refs do when they check your paddle? They do this. So it's like, it's not the most scientific measure, but it is a way of telling grit by the hand briefly. Again, I do think it depends on the paddle. I'll use something like the GX2 Power, for example, by Gearbox. I don't think that's a very gritty paddle. I think it's a very much dwell, pop, and power fake spin more so than grit. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that most people that have played a GX2 Power or still play a GX2 Power would agree with that. Now, those do have a break-in and all that could affect that as well. But that aside, I do think that is a paddle that generates it more through force rather than friction at contact. So I will leave that at that. Let us go into our next segment here. Sorry, you're going to get a lot more of me talking, guys.
Yep. This is you run with it.
Tape. So I have right here, I have Beyond Measure 1 gram tungsten tape, and I have, I don't even know it, Amazon brand 0.5 lead tape. I think it's Golf Up is the brand. My normal brand is Summer House. I do for these on Amazon. I have it in my discount code doc sheet and all that. I absolutely love their lead tape normally, but they don't do 0.5, and I wanted 0.5, so I went with the golf tape. From what I've read and learned online through researching this, golf lead tape is actually more adhesive and durable than regular lead tape, and it's the one that a lot of people usually recommend. So anyways, I took to our wonderful sources of AI, and I asked a couple questions to it. My first was the cost difference between lead tape and tungsten tape over the course of a year. And then I got a little more in depth on that because I realized that could be super vague. So I asked over the course of 30 paddles in a year. And over the course of 30 paddles a year, tungsten would be $160 to $260, depending on how much you use. Take a guess how much lead tape would be.
$30.
No, a lot more than 30.
Okay.
100 to 120. So you're saving on average anything from 40 to $120, give or take. So it is actually a pretty big difference. If you're a viewer like you or I, who I don't know about you, but I can cook through this thing in a month flat. Like, it's not hard for me to, especially if it's the 0.5. I can cook through them pretty quick, especially if we're getting a lot of paddles that are kind of, I'll call it the C45 build, where you need to add weight to fully.
Yeah.
And I do think that is like the trendy thing to do right now and have your paddle feel super light. So I think that weight is becoming even more of a importance rather than kind of leaving the game per se. But I found that interesting. And as someone who right now predominantly sources his own tungsten, tuning, lead, all that outside of occasionally we'll get sent some of this stuff sometimes in like these, I'll call them reviewer care packages and stuff. And it's nice. But, outside of that, if I'm sourcing it at this point, I'm going with lead just because it's cheaper. I do also think the adhesive is a little better on lead, if I'm being honest. I'm just noticing like tungsten, yes, it is nice to be able to move and kind of remove and replace tungsten. It's a little easier to do that one with lead. And lead, yes, I'll talk about the cons to it in a second. But, I think that with that adhesive being better, the weight is more true to it. I think that with the tungsten sometimes, and I'm sure you've experienced this, sometimes you get like a bad reel or it was sitting out a little too long or something like that. And it just doesn't stick the same as it maybe did originally. You really don't get that with lead. It's pretty sticky. Once it's on, unless you just did not press it down whatsoever. So I think just because of that, also that's a piece. But yeah, so you're not going to be able to see it because of the cover. But I do have electrical tape over it. And this is probably 6 inches of lead right here. So, versus kind of tungsten like this, you can kind of just have it out. I could have this lead out too. The reason I don't is because it's a little close to my hand when I choke up for a two-handed backhand, so I don't want to accidentally brush it a bunch. If the lead's here or here, go for it, in my opinion. Like, I'm not like, like eating my paddle per se or, grabbing it by the sides and the top a bunch. Yeah, I made for an interesting video clip right there. You can.
Yeah. Oh, I will be.
It's
VTS's.
I think it's it's pretty safe. Prior to tungsten and all that being in pickleball, we only had lead tape, and
Mhm.
for a while, that's what people were doing. Heck, I'm pretty sure I just saw Ben Johns last weekend on Championship Sunday still using lead tape on his paddles. So, it's about what's comfortable for you and what works for you. So, a little bit more on this study, though. They talk about how rolls and strips and the efficiency of both. Obviously, for Cody and I, rolls are what we use. It's what makes the most sense. We need the most tape we can get. If you're someone that's pretty casual, you just want to put the weight on and forget about it, you don't mind it being heavy, I recommend those 2 gram or 3 gram strips. If you can find it in 2 gram, that's the way to do it, in my opinion. But if you want the 3 gram, the 3 gram is very common. They're not hard to find. They're on Amazon all over the place, eBay, whatever you want, you name it, in terms of marketplaces. Now, in terms of measurements, the measurement quantity per price point is almost $2 higher in tungsten than lead. So if I gave you, I'll pop this open quick, just for reference here. Beyond Measure, by the way, hands down, does the best job around of packaging tungsten, because they give you this and they give you the actual amount that the tungsten is on the bag. I don't know why other companies don't do that. It drives me insane. But yeah, so let's say I wanted, let's say I want about 3 grams of tungsten. There you go. Pre-cut. I know this is not exact and this is going to be tough to see just because of my hands in the way, but there you go. That's about 3 grams of tungsten, give or take. So I take that, I put that on, bam. Before you know it, there you go. Now, it's the same case with lead, really. The only difference is a lot of the time they'll give you this little mini ruler. But yeah, the other thing too, the tungsten is a lot easier to distribute in strips like this than lead is as well. So for strips, I almost always recommend tungsten. For rolls is where I go lead. And so, yeah. And then in terms of waste, they're pretty even with waste. I think if you really dove down into it, obviously lead being a toxin, a form of toxic in a way, it probably is a little more wasteful to use than tungsten for those of you kind of eco-efficiency green people out there. But yeah, that's kind of where I'll leave that at for now. It's an interesting study though. I might end up honestly tossing it in the comments or whatever, like a portion of it, just because it is very long. I was actually shocked at how long of a thing it gave me for all these prompts. But yeah, I thought it to be interesting. I think it's something not really talked about enough. I think a lot of people are just pushing the newest tungsten tape they can find. And I
Yeah.
do like tungsten tape. I'm not anti-tungsten tape by any means. I just think that in terms of cost ratio, lead is the way to go for me personally. So
I don't have much to add on that, but I will add to your last little bit as far as cost efficiency. I was talking with Brody with Carbon. He and I were chit chatting about our paddle setups when we were getting the new Carbon barrages. And we're talking about my setup and his setup and where we were adding weight. They no longer carry their form of tungsten tape because of the cost that it is for them and trying to be generous to consumers, people that are buying it from them. He did say that something was in the works. I don't even know what that is. It was pretty vague, but they are working on something. But I think, I know Braden with Pickleball Effect, he had, his lead tape and tungsten tape, and then he went to what he called his paddle tuning tape because it was supposed to be cheaper than tungsten as well. But I think even that is reaching the limits of upper end of costs, and so I think ultimately, based on the study that you've done, is lead's the way to go. Fortunately, I still have a little bit of
I'm low, man. Beyond Measure, hook us up.
I got
Whoever
a
wants to, Flickweight, whoever. We need tungsten. Like,
yeah. Hey,
Rhonda.
Flickway, your sponsor. We need some lead tape.
We need tungsten. We need lead, whatever you want. Well, you get some Boston in me there, but there you go.
1 gram and half gram, if you don't mind. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But do you have anything else to add as far as that, or should we jump into our last segment?
Yeah, let's dive into
Main of Yeah, main of the week. All right. Main of the week was the Hirache. Absolutely. This is the paddle I was talking about, being a little cryptic earlier. This was my main paddle going into it, and it's definitely one that is still right there. However, it did switch, and so I would say that as of this last week, my main is the Aereo Cyclone. Based on that Friday gameplay and everything, felt great with it. So Aereo Cyclone number one for me. Hirache X Power 2 is number two, and it is not a main, but I'm still hoping that this pulls through for me, but it's just not there. I am struggling hard with this right now. So Aereo Cyclone, number one spot for Dink and Donuts for right now, but we'll see what happens next.
I love it. I love it. Honestly, from what you've told me about this paddle and what I've heard from others, I think that's a great main example of a good main paddle for you. I would say it would be between the Aereo Cyclone and the Hirachi. And I think that that's kind of where you sit right now. So I think that's a very choice in terms of shape, your preferences, stuff like that. Before I get into mine, and this is a question I get asked all the time, I'm sure Cody does as well, is people often ask, well, how do you recommend a paddle? There's a big variety of ways to do it. The simplest thing that I like to do with people normally say, what have you played with prior? What are you playing with currently? What are your pros? What are, 3 pros and 3 cons? Really kind of go from there. Most of the time people only list 1 pro and 1 con, and then it'll kind of just start from there. Just because there's so many paddles that are so similar right now,
Yeah.
so unique. So I know that's not normally part of this segment, but that just reminded me of that. And so I wanted to touch on that. I will admit, I was tempted, dude. I was tempted. I was literally tempted today to change mains. I'm not gonna lie. This thing has been tempting me a lot. It really has. And it's a good paddle. It is a great paddle, to be honest. I know that Matt's Pickleball has been maining this for a while now. He still is. I think it's like number 2 or number 3 on his big lists that he does that everybody loves too. This will not be the main for me though. Surprisingly enough, I actually played great ball today with the Hirachi as well. But yeah, I know. I'm normally not great with elongateds, but I played great ball with this, which had me thinking, am I gonna main elongated?
What?
And I was like, no.
No. No.
I know, I'm teasing you good. No, this is going to be the same main I've had at this point for 2 months now. Over two different paddle iterations of it. It's the Pegasus.
Shocker.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I did main the older version of it as well prior to this.
Only because you couldn't main this one because it wasn't approved yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So pretty much, I was at the point that the second I heard about this paddle and got my hands on it, I got it on the more early side, so I had to be very hush-hush about it, to the point that it involved me taking it in a different paddle case to the courts to avoid the mobs of 11-6-24 hardcore fans asking about the paddle and me having to go like, I can't say anything, I'm just playtesting. So, which was not a fun thing to do either, because I normally love answering those questions in person. So, but yeah, so like this, it just does everything I want in a paddle. I will admit, without weight, it's a little soft for me, but the second I got that weight down here, it felt great. Weirdly enough, I don't have a top bar on this, and I know that you know that I love doing the top bar on this. At the Pegasus I sent you had the top bar.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
I think it did. Yeah, there you go. I was about to say, normally it's a big old top bar is what I do. I don't do anything on the bottom because, in my opinion, a wide body, the twist weight is the strength and the sweet spot and stability are the strength. You don't need to add to the strength. You need to add to the weaknesses, in my opinion, usually with these. With the 11-6-24s, as we've mentioned, they come in a lot lighter, the Power 2s, in terms of the overall weight, counting static and swing weight. So this unit, I did bottom corners on, going well into the face here. Like I'm almost to the middle of the face, to be honest.
Yeah, you are.
I'm at the E of Pegasus. So, for me, this has worked. I like it. I don't plan on switching anytime soon, but hey, I'm fully open to it if the right paddle comes over here. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand with it. I'm also really loving this. It's called Wasabi electrical tape off of Amazon. I've been using it lately on the 11-6-24s just because their edge guards sit really well with electrical. And yeah, it's just a nice little additional protection. It looks really good on this, to be honest, with the white grip. And yeah, and then I mentioned it earlier, but this is 2 U-dripping overgrips is what this is. So super fast hands, super light in the hand. Yeah, that's my main of the week. Probably main for quite a long time. So
We're gonna have to get
making
rid.
it interesting, but also
We're gonna get rid of that segment. It's gonna be what's Cody's new main of the week
I
now
was about to
instead
say
of
Cody's gonna
Dawson.
be the only one changing mains anytime soon because of all this grit testing. So no, but in all seriousness, like I could main a non-durable grit paddle. Cody and I obviously have a lot of paddles. We could do it. It just might not be
Well,
main for 6+ months. So
there you go.
yeah,
Non,
Cody's
non
doing it right now. There you go.
yeah, non-durable grit.
I'm with you though. I'm going to be really curious to see how the rest of this year plays out in terms of durable versus non-durable grip
Yeah,
releases and pricing. I think pricing is the big piece here. How much are you going to pay for a paddle with non-durable grip now?
yeah,
So, because these are
yep,
190 after code. So, like, that's I don't know, man. That's knocking a lot of people down in terms of
yeah,
so
yep.
I think that $99 category is about to get a lot of competition. That's all I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Awesome.
But yeah. All right, man.
All right, there you guys have it. In wraps, like I said, don't forget Holy in-game drink mix. This stuff tastes fantastic. This was the fruit punch flavor, and it was awesome. And then don't forget the other sponsor, Flickweight, for bands, tungsten tape,
Look, wait.
uh, the flick weight. They have the coins that go on the bottom, or you can do the actual flick weight butt caps, which is nice. It's just a silicone butt cap that goes over your new one, so you don't have to void that warranty by removing a butt cap and putting a new one on. So there you guys go. We will see you next time.
Adios.